Welcome to Spiritz Studio Town Hall. I am Bishan Kumar.
And I am Shalini Kumar.
Today is a very special day, it being the World Whisky Day. And this day has a special significance for Indians, as we all know that Indians love to drink whiskey. I remember talking to my friend Sir James Espy, who used to be the president of Shiraz and was knighted by the Queen. He said that if India reduces custom duty on Scotch whiskies, other alcohol beverages, Indian will drink so much that Scotland will not able to produce that amount of Scotch. So this is kind of a love we have for dram. So this is a very interesting day and very interesting session we're going to have. And now I'll request my co-host Shalini Kumar to introduce our panelists.
So it is very good to have you all with us today. We have very famous mixologists, brand ambassadors in their field. And let's start with Rohan. Rohan Jelkie. He is the blend program, global program of Suntory. He is managing that right now and also brand ambassador of Suntory brands in India. And then we have Pankaj Balachandran, who is brand ambassador of Monkey Shoulder India and doing a great job. And then we have Nikhil Varma, who is brand ambassador of Amrut Distillery. He sees all the brands of Amrut. And I welcome you all in town hall. And let's start our discussion now.
So we are hoping to panelist.
There is one more guest in our discussion today. He's Rohan Coupar, who is global brand ambassador of Gruppo Campari Whisky portfolio. So let's all get going.
So, gentlemen, let me throw a warm-up question to you all. This is regarding the World Whisky Day. We keep hearing about it. If you enlighten our readers, our audience, and the whiskey lovers, what is this day and what's its relevance? Any one of you can pick it up the question.
Rohan, I think you can start and then I'll continue lead on with you.
Okay. I think if you look at generally from a consumer's perspective today, given the fact that the consumer has so many options just within the food and beverage community, and not to talk about or the food and beverage industry, and not just to talk about anything else, and categories like whiskey that are a crowd favorite. I think it makes perfect sense to dedicate one day of the year to celebrate the drams that bring so much of joy and love into our lives, right? Incidentally, 3 days ago, it was World Cocktail Day. And immediately following that is World Whisky Day. And I think it's beautiful because if you look at when cocktails were made all those years back, when the word cocktail was coined to when they were made, there was whiskey probably going into most cocktails that were being made back then. And then to today, 3 days later to celebrate World Whisky Day today gives us the perfect opportunity to celebrate some of the best that the industry produces. So from an industry perspective, I think it gives us a perfect opportunity to connect with consumers, bring forth all that we do, and also in a non-COVID situation, we would have been very busy, of course, doing so much more in the physical space, in a bar, restaurant. But today, of course, everything's digital, so it shouldn't stop us in connecting with the consumer. And I think these are also occasions where as brands, we get an idea of what the consumer enjoys, what works for him or her, and World Whisky Day becomes such a perfect opportunity for us.
I think. India is for India and for Indians, every day is a World Whisky Day.
That's right.
In simpler terms. But in a nicer part of it, like we have a day to, as Rohan said, dedicated to all the whiskeys of the world, raising a toast to all the phenomenal blends, all the phenomenal malts which has come out in the market. And we have been fortunate to taste it. And I think it's not a very old tradition. It is fairly new into the World Whiskey Day as a property is a fairly new property, and I mean, as it falls right after the World Cocktail Day, it makes it even more exciting for a week-long celebration of drinking. And falls on a Saturday, there can't be a better day to
that's
go out and enjoy. So I think it's nice for a day to kind of raise a toast to the whiskey as a category.
Right, Nikhil.
Right. First of all, very nice to be here. Many thanks for making me a part of this discussion. It's nice to be here and engage with such lovely people. Like Rohan and Manoj pointed out, it's incredible that we're celebrating this day not just for the industry folks, but also to kind of that we make and talk about. And point out what Pankaj said, it's relatively new. Started I think in 2012, and Blair Bowman did a really good job trying to put this all together, and his tradition is now being followed, and every year around this time is considered to be the World Whiskey Day, which is a good lineage and history to be a part of, and like I think Pankaj said, every day is a World Whiskey Day for Indians, and that is mostly because of how much whiskey has been growing as a category in India, and thanks to the consumers, thanks to the manufacturers who are doing a great job, and it's only going to get bigger, and a discussion like this hopefully will bring in a lot more people into that category.
Right. So now, as everybody knows that we are confined to our homes in such a long stressed lockdown due to COVID-19. So what is the best way to celebrate World Whiskey Day in this situation?
I think we are all celebrating every day as a regular day now. It is a new normal, right? So the COVID has taught us one lesson for sure, that you can turn around any situation to a better one with a glass of whiskey or cocktail or spirit in your hand. And I think all of us have kind of made this a new normal. I mean, I think every day there is one or two drinks that I share virtually with friends and people from the industry. And for me, it is, I mean, I would say the last 2 months has taught me that, you should not stop enjoying a little and having a drink and celebrating a little, even though we are the situation is hopefully turning out better, and in the next couple of months we will all be back out drinking in our favorite bars. But for the time being, we can always raise a glass to virtually and celebrate it for sure. That's what I would say.
Okay. What about you, Rohan?
I think given the fact that in current times, working from home for some of us who are working from home, it can get pretty stressful, and there's nothing like a good dram of whiskey to put that helps you forget all that you go through on a daily basis, and be it with friends or family, or be it connecting with people within the trade, within the industry, or friends over a dram. It just makes so much sense to be able to do this. Like rightly, as Pankaj said, such situations don't necessarily stop the human spirit from, bringing over and celebrating such occasions. And, to quote an example of what we've been doing, one of our teams in Australia, the brand ambassador team, has been doing some excellent job where they've started a property called Drams from Afar, where you've got our brand ambassadors that do these virtual sessions on, either a bit of brand heritage history, or drink making, or talking about, things that make up the unique Scottish way of life. And for a consumer sitting at home, it becomes such a fun experience for those 10-15 minutes that he or she goes through with one of our colleagues. And so yeah, if as World Whiskey Day, we should definitely keep that same ethos alive and going.
So like, this is right that we are missing our friends, but we should celebrate in virtual atmosphere.
Yeah, in fact, yes. In fact, what, I've made it a point to connect with my colleagues and friends. I think we catch up over these Zoom calls on a Saturday night or a Friday night, somebody invariably ends up playing music. Somebody's, everyone's got a dram in hand. Somebody's being the usual
Very nice.
funny man in the scene, and it just becomes a nice little virtual
Fun,
party.
yeah.
I mean,
That's very
that
nice.
what option do we have now?
That
Yeah,
is
so
how-
And that
we make
keep
it a
us
weekly, I make
together
it a-
also. That keep us together also.
Yes, absolutely. It keeps us. So people pull out their favorite drams, and we connect virtually, talk about what's been happening in the week. And I think alcohol's always been a great social lubricant. So the stories keep flowing, and they become funnier as they go.
Yeah. So as we discussed, Rohan, you told us that the cocktail week was cocktail day was just few days back. Now the World Whiskey Day.
Yeah.
So people like my father or my grandfather, older generation, generally were purists. He used to drink their whiskey straight, but now the cocktail trend is growing. So what's your feeling that what kind of the Scotch whiskies or bourbon? Is it the trend now to use high-end bourbon and Scotch whiskies in cocktails? And how this trend is helping the industry as such?
Let me answer that in parts, because I know generally in a market like India, amongst the largest set of consumers, whiskey is not seen as a necessary base for cocktails, because we've always been a market that has drunk whiskey neat or with ice or with water, soda, whatever it is. If you're at Delhi, it's invariably half soda, half pani, stuff like that, right? But if you just generally look at how cocktails have come about in the past over 200 years, whiskey has played such an important role in helping that category grow. If you look at cocktail recipes from the 1820s, 30s, like the Sazeracs or the Old Fashions, and much later the Manhattan in the 1860s or 70s, it was all whiskey-based drinks. And bars across the world today, of course, the bars have gone through a phase where classics were very popular. Then came the time where people started doing these very flashy drinks that had a lot of ice in them, or crushed ice, or crushes, and simple, different colorful syrups. But bars today have gone back to making those classics, because those classics have really stood the tests of time. And just purely from a bar perspective, I think whiskey, because of its mass appeal, the category has such great mass appeal. I think it appeals across a broad spectrum of consumers. There's always an evolved consumer who's going to like his or her whiskey in a certain fashion. For example, if I were to be drinking an 18-year-old malt, I wouldn't get experimental with it, because there is so much that whiskey would stand for 18 years in sitting inside a vat maturing. But for a younger consumer who may not yet be ready to understand and appreciate more bolder, complex flavors in a whiskey, I think the cocktail route becomes such a great way for brands to connect with him or her, and that opens up that and not only the young consumer, it may be the non-whiskey drinking consumer. Cocktails become a great medium to introduce certain styles of cocktails to them, and we've seen that happening. We've seen that happening with categories that are beginning to boom. Certain styles of whiskeys move so much in the form of mixed drinks. So I think overall that trend is a very healthy trend. It helps bring everyone under the umbrella. Sorry, gentlemen.
Can I take this as extension to Nikhil? Nikhil,
yes, for sure.
Yeah, because Rohan, as he very lucidly explained how the trend has gone over the years, you represent a whiskey, Amrut, which is the kind of a pioneer in India's single malt whiskey domain. When you meet bartenders, consumers, other people directly, do you encourage them? Because as Rohan said, the single malt is created with a lot of pain and a lot of feelings, the kind of flavors, on the palate and the nose. It's a beautiful poetry in a bottle. So, do you first suggest them to drink straight and taste it, feel it first, then try with the cocktail? What is your approach towards for promoting whiskey generally?
Right. So our mantra is very simple. I mean, when we conduct our tasting sessions, we encourage people to kind of get to know the whiskey the way we've made it. To understand the flavor nuances and appreciate what has gone in and understand the story of every expression, and like very very closely as much as I do, how much there's a story to every whiskey that is created, so that's what we try to kind of put it out there. And I've had so many experiences with, and I've had been a bit stubborn about this, in a neat or blending glass, something like that is possibly the way I'm doing justice to it. But then I've time and again been reminded that whiskey is extremely versatile. When you mix it in a cocktail, you bring out flavors that you never knew that existed, and the ones
that
that
myth is not there now.
Yes. There are flavor nuances, there are flavor profiles and aromas and so many congenias that are there in the whiskeys that blend and bring out aromas that when mixed with certain ingredients really takes the whiskey a little farther away and opens up a few more gates for it. So I know I have had so many. I'm not an everyday cocktail drinker, but I know for sure that this is something that I have immense respect for, and whenever I get the chance, I try to kind of go and encourage people to go behind the bar and kind of whip something up and try to do something innovative and creative with it, so that I can be able to tell that story as well. So that's what I think, and whiskey is extremely versatile and very personal and intimate, and I think it no matter, we are still exploring our ways to enjoy it in the best way, and I think that should keep going on. So there are days when I like it neat, there are days when I want to have a cocktail with them, no matter which ones I'm talking about within the core range of Amrut. They all bring out their own profile.
Which actually depends on our mood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Robin is going to join us. No, he's again gone. Okay, he'll come again. So my question to you, Pankaj, that
Yes,
monkey shoulder has become a kind of rage globally, which was
I
not
think
the
both
case.
of them are going to beat me up after my perspective about drinking whiskeys, because it's completely way opposite than the traditional.
Right. So, which was not the case 5 years or 6 years back. So what do you think, what suddenly caught fancy of whiskey lovers, consumers?
I think, so the whole idea with Monkey Shoulder coming in and as a brand, when it launched and over the years, was to get people to drink whiskey the way they wanted to drink it, right? Not putting a box around them saying that, okay, you need to have it neat or a few drops of water. I mean, traditionally, definitely it is the way people used to consume whiskey. And I think we all got stuck with the same routine, same conversation around whiskey, making it very, luxury driven or niche, and all of that, which is fantastic, right? So even I love my aged malts, like Rohan mentioned. If it is an aged malt whiskey, I still personally love to drink it by itself. But the whole idea with Monkey Shoulder was to change the way people thought about whiskey, change the consumer perception about whiskey, and bring about what is the way they wanted to drink it, whether it be a straight serve, it is something that you can have, whether it be a highball or something where there's a carbonated beverage added, or whether it be a cocktail. And essentially what I'm drinking today is a Monkey Shoulder barrel aged old fashioned, which has been aged for 2 years in a barrel. So the idea with the brand was to obviously open up a wider consumer range or consumer palette, to give them an option of enjoying it the way they wanted to. And that has become the success story for Monkey Shoulder across the world. I think revolutionizing cocktails once again with the brand, getting them to do things which is more fun and engaging. Traditionally, a whiskey will move away from doing the things that what we do with Monkey Shoulder, but And that is the cheeky reinvention that we wanted to do with whiskey in the first place.
This is
So
like,
I think that has become
this is like
the
Gen Y
rage of
thing.
Monkey Shoulder
Gen Y
in the
thing.
last couple.
Yeah, I think, no, I think it's, you definitely have my support there, because that's the beauty of the category, right? It's a very versatile category. It's a category that I think has a style or a kind of whiskey for every consumer who's looking to take to it. You're not straitjacketed across just a category. There are multiple categories. I mean, India is making great whiskies at present. If you pick up the whiskey Bible and you look at it, there is actually a single malt being made in Pakistan as well, right? So it's all over the place. Yeah, it's all over the place. So I think it's that one category that, because of its universal appeal, is also such a versatile category that consumers and brands also have that ability to be able to offer a diverse range of avatars of whiskey.
But during your interaction with your consumers and bartenders, Rohan, others can join in later on this. What is the feeling you have that the two different kind of segments of whiskey drinkers, like if you divide the younger population and older population, is it a different kind of styles they prefer to the whiskey they want to have? Like me, I don't want to mix anything in my whiskey. I love to have each malt straight, nothing to be added into it.
But I love my cocktails.
But sometimes when the genius is like when Rohan also behind bar and he makes some cocktails, I love to have Yangdub Lama or Sandy Varma or Kama or Shadi Basu they make. So I love those cocktails as well. So is it very kind of a clear demarcation between the two sets of people in terms of age groups and the way they drink whiskey?
I think just if you look at it from a cocktail perspective, I think cocktails are a great recruiter, right? They're as a platform, cocktails work perfectly in recruiting consumers into trying different kind of whiskeys. And as people progress, I think once people have found a sweet spot between the styles of whiskeys they like, I think they're also able to figure out at some point what are those styles that they prefer drinking neat versus certain styles of whiskeys that they might find more appealing in a.
So let's welcome Robin is with us now, and Robin is Robin Cooper. Robin Cooper is Global Brand Ambassador of Gruppo Campari's Whiskey portfolio. So welcome you in Town Hall, Robin, and let's start our discussion now. Continue our discussion rather.
Yeah. Welcome, Robin. I'm so fascinated to see the great pot stills behind you, and Glen Grant pot stills, I believe. These are Glen Grant pot stills.
They are.
Yeah. So today on the World Whiskey Day, my other panelists have also spoken about the significance of World Whiskey Day. If you care to throw some light, what is the importance, significance of this, and how a consumer should celebrate it in such a difficult time?
Well, that's exactly, I think one of the purposes of World Whiskey Day is ultimately to connect people through the mighty brown spirit. Because what whiskey is, it's a bonding drink. It brings people together. If you look at, the rites of passage, I mean, when couples get married, they may have a whiskey, or a baby's born, they may celebrate with a whiskey, or a son comes of age, he's given a bottle of 18 years old, whatever. I mean, that's what I think whiskey brings people together. And it's like I say, it's a bonding drink. I don't think people really bond with a gin and tonic or a vodka soda, but they certainly bond with a whiskey. So I saw a movie clip or a clip, and it was people across Scotland who were raising a glass, not just Scotland, but around the world. They were raising a glass and wishing each other, happy World Whiskey Day. And especially, I think at a time like we're in right now, where, we're all having to shelter at home or keep a distance, and there's greater, I think, divisions in the world now. Whiskey is something that, hopefully can bring us together and remind us that, we celebrate, the natural ingredients that, we have: water, the grain, cereal, yeast, and a bit of alchemy, a bit of art, a little bit of science, I guess. Mother Nature, Father Time produces this wonderful brown spirit that I think we're all coming together to celebrate.
Yeah. After listening to you, one thought came into my mind. Maybe other panelists can also jump in. Like the Oktoberfest is about beer, and we see the millions of people joining there in Oktoberfest festival all over, from world over. Why there is no such huge gathering on World Whiskey Day at somewhere? Why this idea has not come about? That this is the place. Like Scotland is the mecca of whiskey making, or maybe in Tennessee where a lot of whiskeys are being made. Why no such a big people festival is organized world over to have greater significance of World Whiskey Day? Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, you talk Oktoberfest. Yeah, it's now a global event. I think this is what World Whiskey Day seeks to achieve, is one day where we can focus around whiskey. So I think World Whiskey Days, I don't know, I'm not really sure the history of World Whiskey Day. I think it's a relatively new phenomena.
Yeah.
And it will take time for it to build up to reach the dizzy heights of Oktoberfest. But I mean, in Scotland, in Speyside, and this is Glen Grant Stillhouse behind me virtually, we celebrate the Speyside Whiskey Festival every year. On Islay, they celebrate Facial, the Islay Whiskey Festival. Across America, well, particularly in Kentucky, there's World Bourbon Day. So I think people are celebrating, whiskey, but in various shapes and forms, various jurisdictions. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a whiskey in India Whiskey Day sometime soon, as the whiskey industry in India propels itself beyond India's borders.
Yeah, right now it's very localized kind of Isla, Speyside and Kentucky, as you are saying, but it's not world over.
Well, I think this World Whiskey Day is going to address that gap.
It's just
hopefully.
8 years old. Pankaj, your thought about it?
I think, as Robin mentioned, it's relatively newer concept, and Oktoberfest has been, something which has been celebrated year after year for so many years now. And I think in the next coming years, this is definitely a beginning of, the world over coming together to celebrate this beautiful spirit and this beautiful category of which is whiskey. And I'm sure that in the coming years, we will definitely, other than these localized events, which is Speyside. I mean, as he was mentioning, the Speyside Whiskey Festival also clubs in with a dramathon, which is done by William Grant, which is a big event, also looking at health and all of that. But I'm sure there will be one such, massive scale event which celebrates whiskey. And when you think about India also, I'm sure there will be, we are now in the mood of gins, and everyone is kind of enjoying gins as a category. And I'm sure whiskey is, loved over the last so many years, and people will come back and celebrate it with a whiskey festival or an event of that scale, which is happening like the gin festivals in India. So it is just a matter of time, and I'm sure we will have more and more occasions to celebrate whiskey.
Nikhil?
Yes, I think it's, just kind of putting all the points together. It is just the beginning, and it's 8 years too young, and we're competing here with Oktoberfest, which had, since 1800s or God knows how long it has been going on since. So, so I think with the number of people entering the whiskey category, I think it is only going to grow, and we will hopefully have a day where we will be unified on a single day to celebrate and whiskey all together. But I think in retrospect, having so many different days for whiskey is actually better than having one single day, because then we have so many other reasons to appreciate a single category of liquor. So I think, you know, it's good that we have a bourbon day or maybe hopefully an Indian whiskey category day or something like that. So it's good to you know, have many excuses to enjoy whiskey.
Rohan, what do you think if we spirit this idea of celebrating World Whiskey or Indian Whiskey Day here, or World Whiskey Day in India? So do you think companies would be happy to join in and have a kind of a people's celebration in India? Will it be a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do a large scale whiskey celebration in India, well, I think this is the market to do it, right? We love our whiskeys. Pankaj earlier on said that every day is a World Whiskey Day for us, and I think it'll just be a perfect opportunity to bring all whiskeys under the Indian sun to get consumers to tipple away to. I think that's a great idea that you know, people, maybe the team at Spiritz can look to organizing sometime in the near future. It may just be the perfect opportunity for us to you know, meet and greet ourselves in the next few months as the situation hopefully improves.
But all the hard work is on us, like taking the excise permission and all.
well, you've been doing it for so many years. I'm sure the team at Spiritz is pros at it.
Sure. So, Robin, my question to you is that Campari's Glen Grant whiskey variants like 18 years old and 10 years old have been getting international awards again and again. So what is the secret of this phenomenal success?
Like Glen Grant has six consecutive
18
years.
years is my favorite. One of the
favorites. I'm not sure I can tell you the secret. But, well, I mean, one thing, there's a few standout things about Glen Grant. I mean, one is that we're quite a small distillery. I mean, when you look around the landscape of Speyside, I mean, many distilleries have gone through some big expansions. So we're quite small. Another thing is that we use some of the older traditional methods. So we have stone warehouses, we have wooden fermenters. We also bottle every drop of spirit here at the distillery. So if you were in wine talk, it would be a estate bottled, and that, under our supervision, it gives us greater control over the quality. But I think, I mean, obviously there's the distillation process, and the water cooling purifies. The height of the still gives us a very aromatic spirit, and we use bourbon and we use sherry barrels. But I think an important point is that our master distiller, Dennis Malcolm, the person who's responsible for the quality of the spirit, he's Scotland's longest serving distiller. And he started in 1961. So next year we'll be celebrating Dennis's diamond anniversary. In fact, this year we're celebrating our 180th birthday party. So nice. I think all of these factors really distill down into what we have. And Dennis would describe Glen Grant a harmony of aroma, taste, and finish. And it's something that, you know, our DNA, if you like, is that fruity, aromatic aroma with those really strong barley notes. And it's a real Scotch. I mean, it delivers on being Scotch. There's no wine finishing. There's no peated smokiness. It is your classic Speyside. And really the quality of Glen Grant is beginning to shine through, and that's not forget. I mean, we're a very, very small brand in India, so it's difficult to find. However, those people in the know, the cognoscenti, as it were, will know Glen Grant, and they'll probably know where to find it, and they'll probably covet a bottle of Glen Grant. So these are some of the secrets that I think are getting Glen Grant noticed amongst some of the whiskey writers, those people who evaluate whiskey, like Murray's of this world.
My question to all of you, that as the generation grow, the new trends emerge. So, as my earlier discussion with Rohan before we started this session, say, people are not actually extremely brand loyal now. They want to experiment with new brands. So, what kind of new expressions? Because you are in touch with what's happening in the whiskey sector. Like Robin keeps traveling all over the world. You all keep traveling. What's a new
Not
expression?
right now.
New expressions keep coming, and we can, like our whiskey lovers can look forward to some new whiskey expressions cutting across your company's portfolio.
Shall I take a
Yeah.
take a lead on this? So I mean, the idea with when I talk about Monkey Shoulder, the idea was to get people to drink Scotch. Introduce them to Scotch. And as Robin said, it's again Speyside has a very clear-cut understanding of how the whiskey should be. It's non-peated. It's very fruity and floral. It's much easier, much lighter to drink. Very character-forward. So. When Monkey Shoulder launched a blended malt with Speyside malt whiskeys in it, it was more for consumers to really not think about too much about whether I should be using a Glencairn or should I the traditional Scotch nosing notes and tasting notes, and just drink whiskey and enjoy it the way it is, like Rohan. But now there is always an opportunity to another category, as I would say, or from Isla, which is the smoky peaty style of whiskey production. And most of the people who drink Isla for the first time, they are kind of taken aback with the amount of the specific peaty character, and it's not something that you gradually enjoy drinking. I mean, definitely for me, it took a longer duration of time to enjoy a nice malt from the peaty style of whiskey. So Monkey Shoulder has now taken a step further to introduce to the younger audience, or who wants to enjoy a peatier version of a whiskey with a newer edition of whiskey called Smoky Monkey. So Smoky Monkey would be, it just got launched in UK and also in Europe, and soon in the United States of America, and we will see it in Asia by 2021 or 22. So that is an introduction to a peated style of whiskey. Though it is not an Isla peat, it is more of a Highland peat, so it's not too vegetal, medicinal, peat forward, but more of a mellowed version of a peat. So again, it's like an introduction to peated whiskey, and I think it is a beautiful expression of how you can introduce people to drinking peated Scotch. So that's something that Monkey Shoulder is already doing.
So Rohan, what's
other than
happening
what
in
Glenfiddich does.
What's happening in your brands? Like you're coming with new expressions, or like we all know that teachers had quite a resonance among Indian whiskey lovers. So what other brands you think have the same resonance, or new brands like Bain Suntory is a huge company now, and its portfolio is a large. Yeah?
Also, they have launched OK Smith. You recently launched. It's available,
Smith,
I think, in
yes,
Maharashtra
we
and
did.
Telangana. So tell me about your portfolio and its USP.
Okay, so I think purely if you look at the variety of whiskey that we have available within the Beam Suntory world, we happen to be the only alcohol company in the spirit space currently to produce whiskey in all the 5 major whiskey producing countries. In Canada, we've got Canadian Club. Then in the US, we produce a whole host of bourbon whiskeys that are led by Jim Beam and Maker's Mark. And we've got brands like Kilbeggan and Connemara and Tyrconnell coming in from Ireland. Scotland, of course, is home to some of our biggest brands, including Teachers, like you said. We've got the Lafroig and Bowmore and the Ardmore, Okitoshan. And if you cut across half a way across the world to Japan, we got the Hibikis and the Yamazakis from the distillery at Suntory, and then we have Hakushu, the Cheetah, Toki. So it's a fairly power-packed portfolio of whiskey brands. And India, I think, for the Beam Suntory business, India is a top priority market. It's the market that has always delivered on its its whiskey consumption. If you've seen Teachers is a brand that's always been loved for the longest time. Bourbon as a category is beginning to grow. That's effectively led by Jim Beam. Makers is a brand that's also been around here for a long time. The idea with Oaksmith was to take the expertise, the whiskey making expertise within the Beam Suntory world, and craft a whiskey that could appeal to a larger audience. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about a Scotch or a bourbon, there is a certain audience for it. Right? But if you look at the way the Indian consumer drinks whiskey, he also drinks whiskeys that may not necessarily always be a Scotch or a bourbon. Right? India largely tends to drink what we call the whiskeys that fall under the IMFL category. But this is also a category that is defined over the years, has been defined by the use of imported, Scotch malt in making these whiskeys. So we took this whole step of this idea a step further when we launched Oaksmith by creating a blend that not only used imported Scotch malts but also has bourbon whiskey in it. And currently in this category, there is no whiskey that uses imported Scotch malts and bourbon whiskey in the blend. This whole art and craft of blending was together by none other than Shinji Fukuyo, who is the chief blender at the House of Suntory. So when you look at brands like Hibiki and Yamazaki, those are crafted by him. And Shinji-san traveled to India for about 6 times in the past year and a half, traveling through the length and breadth of India. We've taken him around to markets like Hyderabad, to Bombay. He's in fact shared a drink with us in the ahatas of Gurgaon, which is, I think, a very, very daring thing for him to do. He's had a masala peanut. He's had a Andhra style chili chicken, just to understand what the Indian consumer likes. Because, let's face it, we are a country. We are a country that we love a drink, and unlike in many parts of the world, we start with drinks first and then we get to the food, right? Which means that whiskey or any dram anything that you're drinking ends up influencing what you're going to be eating along with it, instead of the other way around. So the idea with Oaksmith was to take this get this entire new breed of consumers into the Beam Suntory world, and I think what it allows is this natural progression for a portfolio. While there are at a distillery level, all brands are always working on different expressions of, be it Lafroig or stuff that might be happening at Jim Beam with the small batch bourbons like Basil Hayden or Booker's. But within a portfolio, to have brands that that can recruit the consumer at a younger level. When I say younger, I in no way mean under the LDA. Of course, about the LDA, but these brands offer the consumer a natural progression from, say, an Oaksmith onto drinking, say, Teachers or Jim Beam. At some point, that consumer is going to look at bigger, better. So that premiumization is what I think a portfolio of brands really allow you to do. And I think that's true for all our portfolios across the board, be it at William Grant's or be it at Gruppo Campari. I think the ability to offer the consumer multiple different whiskies in terms of style, most importantly, in terms of flavor profiles, and then, of course, a price point, is what keeps customers in this category.
Yeah. There's a huge world of whiskey. Nikhil, I was discussing with Rohan. Yes. Your Amrut distillery also has a whiskey with significant amount of malt in it, and I think Macintosh.
Absolutely. Success.
Yeah. So because you are also pushing Macintosh in this North India now, and what are the new brands coming in from your stable? Because this is Mr. Neelkant Jagdal's legacy. This legacy you people are carrying forward. And he's a father of single malt from India. So it's onerous responsibility on your shoulder, whole team. So what's new happening in the stable of Amrut Distilleries?
There is always, we always have enough bandwidth to, come up with new single malts. But unfortunately, India, because we have such wider consumer base around the world, India sometimes doesn't necessarily feature in all of them. but we are going to release some limited edition variants of some of the whiskies that are a part of the international portfolio, like the Narangi, which will come out as as a collectible very soon. In fact, we were actually in the middle of trying to kind of coordinate that, but we've been pushed back, like because of the pandemic. So the plans have changed now for this current financial year. So that we're working on a new category itself, which is not whiskey, of course. So I'm working on that myself, and Macintosh. And the idea is to also kind of grow and get consumers to experience Amrut like never before, because like you already know, Amrut has been a very orthodox, traditional, family-owned business, and the way we run the business has been extremely traditional. So this time we are trying to focus on a wider consumer base from late college or early MBAs to mid 30s and 40s and all of that. So look at them, see their drinking patterns, see their social group and their settings, and kind of focus on that and take it from there. And we are coming up with newer, innovative products so that we can look at and tap these consumers and have them enjoy and experience something that necessarily wasn't part of the company's thought process about a decade ago. So so we are changing with time. We're using technology. We're trying to we've expanded a distillery to 3 times its capacity. So we're trying to do everything in quick pace so that we can catch up with the growing international demand, as well as the demand that is growing in India.
So I now go to Robin. Robin, what's your what do you think the future of whiskey lies ahead of us, especially when every market is shut down, the production also have been hampered to some extent, sales is also not happening. So what's is the future of whiskey specifically the world over? And when do you think this situation will improve and things will pick up?
Yeah, and how much time will it take?
Okay, a few questions there. Well, what we've seen in in European markets and American markets and across further afield is the complete shutdown of the on-premise. All the bars, all the restaurants, all the places where alcohol is sold is now gone, or temporarily gone, has closed. We've seen quite a lot of bars actually closed for good now. A laying off of, hundreds and thousands of bartenders, the people who have introduced our customers into whiskey. But hopefully that's a temporary situation, and hopefully we can go back to normal soon.
Okay.
Maintaining our
Absolutely.
cleanliness, washing our hands, etc., and keeping our distance.
I think that's.
I think Nikhil and Rohan and Pankaj have all talked about the consumer. I see that we now have the next generation of whiskey drinkers through the millennial generation. All of them have these. Access to information is very easy now, and this kind of trend of premiumization, but also of knowledge, and many consumers are like to learn about whiskey. They're fast tracking to become experts. Many consumers are forming whiskey clubs, get-togethers where they're connecting, sharing, and learning, and this all sort of feeds into social currency. Becoming a quote-unquote expert, being interesting, have something to say about yourself. But let's not forget, that vanity aside, whiskey is such a broad diversity of different styles, different flavors, different jurisdictions, different ingredients, different processes, which makes this category is so compelling for people.
Thank you.
And
Now the time has come to close this session. I want all of you to raise your glass and say how.
One small question.
Okay.
So I want one cocktail recipe from every one of you.
Do you have
Whiskey
time?
cocktail recipe.
Done.
So
Beautiful. I like this.
All right,
conversation.
So we'll
Yeah,
start with
yeah.
Robin. Robin, one quick cocktail recipe.
Which one you prefer?
okay,
Your favorite.
I'm gonna have to jump off after this because I've actually got a meeting to join. But
Okay.
I like this neat or with a splash of water. But if I'm pushed into a cocktail, I mean, quite simply an old-fashioned, muddle a little bit of sugar, add some bitters, add some fairly good ice, and a little bit of Glen Grant and a maraschino cherry on top, and have a Glen Grant old-fashioned. I'm sure Pankaj has exactly the same cocktail lined up, but
Yeah.
I'll have to change that, Robin, now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to jump off, folks.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you,
Thank you so
All
much.
right, Robin, have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look forward to meeting you
Bye,
all.
bye, Robin.
Yeah.
Nice
Well,
meeting
look
you.
forward to
Very
it.
soon.
Bye.
I'm on Instagram at Robin Cooper, so I'll
I
follow
know.
you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Very nice.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
So,
Bye.
Rohan,
Robin.
over to you.
I'll give you two. I think my just purely from the way I like my cocktails, I pretty much like my cocktails to be spirit forward. And if there's a style of drink that I really like, or a style of whiskey that I like going into my cocktails, is aged bourbon. I quite enjoy a Boulevardier, and Boulevardier. We've got the Jim Beam Black now available, so I enjoy my Boulevardiers made with Jim Beam Black. And it's a simple drink. If you like the Negroni, which is a brilliant drink, so there are days when I'm
Amazing.
having that with Roku. I swap out the Roku for a little bit of Jim Beam Black in it, and it makes for a
Yeah,
delicious.
but we'll only talk about Jim
Boulevardier.
Beam, not Roku. It's a World Whiskey Day.
That's what
He's talking
which
the
is
cocktail.
why I said the Boulevardier is
It's a
the Boulevardier is a great drink. Yeah. So the Boulevardier is actually an extension of the Negroni, where you mix it, where you make it with bourbon whiskey instead of gin. And then of course, then if I were to have something a bit more lighter, fresher, then I'd perhaps be drinking a highball. And I think if you see the highball as a style of drink today has become so popular across the board. There is suddenly across the world, every whiskey company is doing stuff around the highball. And interestingly, in Asia, the highball as a style of drink has always been consumed. If you go to a lot of Asian markets, be it Japan, Singapore, or for that matter, if you look at how we drink our whiskeys in India, we've always had an affinity of drinking whiskey, with ice and soda and or water in it. And this I think. When you take it, when you make it in the form of a highball, elements like the ice, the crispness of the soda, the carbonation levels of the soda, a garnish that might go into it in the form of a lemon or a grapefruit peel, mint, whatever is your chosen garnish. I think it allows the consumer that flexibility to make such drinks at home. Not every consumer is a cocktail bartender, right?
Yeah.
But drinks like the highball make it so simple, and we've had markets that have shown massive success with highball programs that have led to increased growth for brands. And that doesn't happen in the retail shelf; it happens at the bar, right? Which means if the bars are doing business, brands are doing business. So there you have it. I would think highball during the day, Boulevardiers at night.
Good. So
Lovely.
now Pankaj.
Okay, so since Rohan is going with two drinks, I'll also give two recipes. So one is a super easy thing that you can do because old fashioned is such a very, very popular drink across the world. It takes time to be made, but this is like a quick fix recipe for an old fashioned. We do it, in the whole bottle. So it's called a lazy old fashioned, and it serves 12 people in less than 45 seconds, right? So the lazy old fashioned, you need a bottle of monkey shoulder. You take out about 100 ml. And fill that 100 ml with 30 ml of Angostura bitter and 70 ml of sugar syrup. Shake it up, put it in your fridge. The sugar syrup is 1:1. That means it has already contributed to your dilution. So all you need to do is pick it up from the fridge, pour it over a big block of ice, and you are good to go with a slice of or a peel of orange, right? So that is the easy, quick fix, 12 drinks right there. Another one that I'm currently nosing on as I told you, is a barrel-aged a Godfather, which is a popular drink with whiskey and amaretto. But this one has got a bit of chocolate bitters, aged for 2 years with monkey shoulder. Brilliant, brilliant drink to sip on. I think I did not even know that when it almost got over while I was having the conversation with you. So that will be my 2 recipes to everyone.
Thank you.
Quick question here. What do you do with that 100 ml that you take out?
Have a shot with 2 people. Don't get drunk, but have a shot with 2 people.
And what about you, Nikhil?
Right. Going by the tradition, 2 drinks. One is, my all-time favorite Negroni. Works really well for most time of the day, most part of the year, of course. So that works really well. And I have, I've only just really recently started kind of stepping into the cocktail world, and I know one. I had the luxury of just trying some cocktails made by Lama, and he whipped up something with an old-fashioned a version of his own, and he put in pomegranate and God knows all that kind of coolness to it. And I know for sure that if an old-fashioned is not too difficult to be made, and it can be whipped up quite easily, and you can put in all the freshness that you want to add to your cocktail, a touch of your own, if you like, and you can have one at any time of the day. So these are the 2 ones that I go for.
So thank you all.
Thank you,
And
gentlemen.
let's celebrate
Thank you so much.
this evening, and happy World Whiskey Day.
Let's hope
Happy World Whiskey Day
make
to
it
all
bigger
of
next
you.
year.
Cheers.
Thank
Have
you.
a fantastic
Nice
one and a
to
great
have you all
weekend.
here.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Yes.
Stay safe.
Cheers.
All right.
So nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank
Same
you.
here.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.